Again, I'm Scott Monfort. I'm going to kind of bring to you a few things to think about as we move forward into this year. And if you go to the county meetings, we're trying to do the same thing, except a little bit more in depth. You know, we're coming out of a pretty tough year. We know we've got some tough things ahead. And so we just want to make sure that we bring everything that we can so that you can think about things that's going on and make some pretty solid decisions. And I'm going to touch very briefly on the weather events this past year and kind of reassure you that, hey, as a grower, you didn't do anything wrong this time. Just kind of like 23, we've had some pretty tough weather events. And I'm going to try to go through that. And then kind of what to expect for 25. And if you're a grower, you know, we're kind of throwing this right at you to get you to think about it. But if you're a consultant or a chemical dealer, all of this does mean something to you as well, because you're ultimately going to help that grower. So keep that in mind. I've shown this quite a bit to our county agents and at our meetings we've had so far. You know, last year we produced 843,000 acres. That's the third largest that we've had in the last 20 years. Guess what? We're ending the year at 3,850 pounds per acre. That is the lowest state average that we've had in that time period also, if not longer. And so that gives you an indication either we had some bad things, you know, that we couldn't control, which again I'm going to mention here in a minute, or we did a bad job in what we do our management decisions, and we didn't do that. We tried to fight this as good as we could. So those are some of the things, you know, back in July, I would have never thought that we would have hit this low. But again, you know, sometimes we go through some bad things to have a blessing. The question is where we're going from here, and I think it's going to be where we're at or more. And if we would have had huge yields this past year, the number in front of any contracts is going to be out wouldn't be very high. At least right now, maybe we'll have at least a decent contract potentially. Now, the biggest thing I think in 2024 was the fact that when we look at yields and net returns, you did everything you possibly could. I mentioned that already. You know, there's a lot of things that go into this pool of yield and net returns, but the thing that we, you know, dealt with last year was more related to Mother Nature that took it from us. We put everything we could in it, but Mother Nature took it from us. You know, a lot of people kind of got hung up on Debbie and Helene. That was not what hit peanuts the hardest. What hit peanuts the hardest was the 3 to 4 weeks of May rain, continuous rain. How many of you guys didn't plant for 3 weeks? Quite a long time. That hurt us for a lot of different reasons. Hot and dry June, so if you were able to plant, dang, they sat there in the rain for a month, and then we dried them out and tried to kill them, you know, if you didn't have irrigation. And then the latter part of that, yes, we did have the 2 hurricanes, but at Central and West Georgia really didn't feel much from those. We did get some rain, but not a lot. What happened, though, in between those two is we got drier, and actually at the end of August, we started cooling off, and we cooled off quite a bit. September through November for certain. And so those are the things, when you take this all in, that's what got us. We can take Mother Nature, right? Because that's what we need. We need rain, we need the temperatures, but this year we didn't know what we were getting and when we were getting it, and it come in different ways. So where are we going from here? What are we going to do in 2025? You know, this is last year's acres of the rotating crops that we have. Soybean, we don't rotate them a lot with peanut, but the top, you know, cotton and corn, you know, cotton is really not looking good right now, and people talking about backing off on cotton. And if we drop off another 100,000 acres, where is it going? Yes, we can pick a little bit of corn up, but that's irrigated. We got 50% of our acres that are not irrigated. So what are we going to do? And the thing is everybody's saying is we may see a little bit more in peanut. And we've had, 9 meetings so far? 9 meetings so far. And I'm asking questions of the growers in those meetings, and so far it's staying the same or a little bit more. So that's something that by the time we get done, we should have a pretty good idea. What I am worried about is short to no rotation. So I'm talking about 1 year out. or peanut behind peanut. That's where we're going right now, or that's what we're facing. So that's going to be something we're going to worry about. So let's talk about how to maximize yields. You know, whether you can't do anything about, but you can do something about all the things that's on this list here. Everything has a cause and effect, right? Everything, you know, you choose something in here and you choose to change that, well, it's gonna either help you or hurt you, and it may offset something else. And so what I really want to talk about a little bit is tillage and rotation. That's one thing that we are moving, again, away from, if you want to call it that. We got about 50% of our acres still bottom plowed or deep turned. We got about 50% of our crop right now that is in good 3-year plus rotation, but I think we're below that in our other rotations, and everybody is trying to find ways to cut back. And we hear that a lot, cutting back, you know, and tillage is one that hey, everybody's doing it. If you look at over here, I've got, you know, tillage. If you want to go away from deep turning, if you're in a 3-year rotation now, if last year you've been in a 3-year rotation and you need to plant peanut behind peanut or drop down to a shorter rotation, can I do without deep turning and be okay? Maybe, probably so, because you've been in a great rotation. But if you've been in these 1-year out rotations for the last several years, that deep turning is helping. And so if you go away from that, it's going to cause some problems. You know, pest problems going to increase, fertility, you got to remember to put that back. We've been telling growers that, you know, we don't necessarily think about when we take off the hay that, hey, that's going to hurt me if I'm in short rotation if I'm not consistently putting nutrients back. You know, usually if you're in a good rotation with corn and cotton, we're already putting that back. And so we're not really worried about it. But if you're in short rotation or no rotation, we've got to put that back. And the yields are going to decline in some of these areas as we shorten these rotations and quit going to deep tillage. So not saying you can't do it, because we can. We just got to make sure that whatever we do, if we change these two, we may have to pick up more of a management decision in our pest management part of it. So just got to, you know, you got to offset some things and make sure. So the take home here is just, you know your rotational interval and how that impacts you as we go forward. So if you've got farms you've got to drop back on, go ahead and make those plans to alter your fungicide programs, or make sure that you stiffen up that as much as you can, and as well as everything else. We hear a lot about, you know, fertility, herbicides, and fungicides, trying to cut back on those. In these situations, cutting back on the mainstay products do not help us in maintaining yields or making more yield. So just keep that in mind. Planting decisions, we talk about this a lot. I talk about it a lot with Scott Tubbs, my counterpart. We got a lot of choices here that we can alter. Variety choice is going to be very important, and we're going to talk about varieties in the next session. We do have some new ones coming out that will help us as we go forward. Now, we won't have many acres of those, but they will help us. Seed quality is another one. Seed quality is always number one. If we're going to get a head start in this season, we've got to have good high quality seed, and they got to have high vigor, or at least as high as we can get it. But the problem is I can't all the time predict that. And so we talk about the importance of knowing your germs, and knowing how long and where they're at and how you store them. Planting date's another one. Again, knowing your variety. Don't go and plant everything in April. We got a couple people over the last several years, they planted everything they had in April. Let's not do that. Kind of hedge your bet a little bit and spread it out. Insecticide choice, row pattern, inoculant, speed. We want to get across acres quick, but if we're causing skippy stands, is it really doing us any good there? So keep that in mind. Take home message there. Information is a success here. Ask your county agents, your consultants. We ask everybody to join the All About the Pod podcast. We try to bring you that every week. How many of you guys hear the podcast? Good, glad. We would love to have everybody. It is something you could listen to in your tractor or your truck and gain some knowledge about what's going on. Do we know everything? No, but we will give you those changes in what's going on and kind of how to hit that. And that's kind of here. remaining economical or survival mode. We've heard that multiple times, and I'm just reiterating the situation here. Making multiple changes can result in increased inputs and decreased yields. So if you're going to make some changes, make sure you weigh out the risk before you pull the trigger on those, and try to figure out, is it in your best interest to go away from the mainstay products versus some of the other things that's out there that we could do. And we talk a lot about in these meetings of pest management programs. Man, the first thing that comes up, other than tillage or, planting date or whatever it might be, is these fungicide programs. And that's something that we can't kind of disappear from. So survival mode does not mean cutting back on fertility in those type of programs. And if you are in a shortened rotation, just know you got a higher disease risk, and Bravo TEB does not mean that you're going to either maintain your your returns or make money. So just cutting back and doing the bare minimum is not going to always pay for it. So with that, I'm going to move on to our next speaker. But again, this is you can click on that while he's getting ready, and that'll take you to the podcast on the phone. By all means, I will take a question or two if you got one.